Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are attending this lecture. My name is Professor Cihan Çobanoğlu. I'm the McKibben Endau Chair Professor at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee, in the College of Hospitality and Tourism Leadership. I also serve as the President of Association of North America Higher Education International, which is the organization that is sponsoring this lecture series. Today, we have Professor Levent Altinay with us. Before I introduce him to you, I would like to go over the association and some of the services it provides to the to academics. Today, as I have told you, we are going to host Professor Levent Altinay as part of the ANAHEI Distinguished Lecture Series. But again, as I have told you, I would like to introduce you the organization. ANAHEI is a not-for-profit organization, and the mission is to promote and encourage a global culture at member institutions, which, by the way, we are over 1,000 members as of today, that globalize student and faculty successes, enhance global initiatives among member institutions, and deepen global engagement. The membership to ANAHEI is free of charge. You can become a member and learn about the organization from its website, anahei.org, ANAHEI.org, which is the acronym for the association. We have Visiting Scholars program where we match the scholars around the world with the programs in the United States mainly. We have also partnership programs that creates, again, that bridge between the universities across the globe. ANAHEI has two journals, publishes two journals, open source journals, have several conferences, and also sponsors some awards and distinguished lecture series. As we are witnessing today, we are doing one of them. The two journals that ANAHEI has is, the first one is International Interdisciplinary Business Economics Advancement Journal, IBA Journal, and also the Journal of Global Education and Research. The website is journal at anahei.org. Both of them are true open source journals, which means that it does not cost any money to the authors to submit and publish the articles, and also it doesn't cost the public, the audience, to download any of the articles. Again, we encourage all of you to submit into one of these journals. ANAHEI sponsors and produces several conferences. The first one that I would like to talk to you about is Global Conference on Education and Research, which we had the privilege and honor of hosting more than 200 academics from 15 different countries on actually at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee campus just last week. It was a successful, wonderful conference where we have exchanged a lot of ideas. Next year, this conference is going to take place in April 2018 at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And the information about this conference can be found at glosser.org. And we are also doing another conference called we're going to be having the 8th International Interdisciplinary Business Economics Advancement Conference. For short, we call it IBA Conference. This conference is unique because it's going to be held on a cruise. Yes, you heard it right. It's a 5-day cruise. We are having this conference, and this conference, believe it or not, has huge, high satisfaction rating with the audience members. And I prefer personally the cruise conference over land conference because the networking is even better than the land conferences, where people may come and go based on their schedule. But the cruise conference combines education, networking, presentations with a lot of cultural learning, as we call it, because usually the cruise ship stops in different destinations. This particular one is going to happen between 18 and 23rd November, and the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, which is a regular cruise line that we normally have the conference on, they've got wonderful conference facilities. It's going to take place from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We also are proud to host the first Graduate Student Research Conference in Business Economics, again last week on our campus here at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee. And normally in hospitality, there is a graduate student conference, which is very successful. It's been run for more than 25 years, and University of South Florida was lucky to host one of them in 2015 in Tampa. And we wanted to replicate this success in hospitality field to general business and economics. Therefore, we created this conference, and we hope to continue this conference in the years coming. The other conference that we are going to have, and ANAHEI produces, is Global Conference on Services Management. Dr. Levent Altinay will be one of the keynote speakers. It's going to take place on October 3rd to 7th, 2017 in Volterra, which is a city in the heart of Tuscany in Italy. The website is glosserve.org. You can see a picture of Volterra here. It's an amazing town, very old, near Pisa and Florence. I encourage all of you to submit abstracts to this conference and also listen amazing keynote speakers, Rick Andrews, Fevzi Okumuş, Levent Altinay, and also Elliot Falcioni are the keynote speakers for this conference, and also have a chance to see us in Italy. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Professor Levent Altinay to you and then leave the floor to him. Levent Altinay is a professor in the Faculty of Business at Oxford Brookes University and the editor-in-chief of the Service Industries Journal. Altinay's research interests are in the areas of entrepreneurship, strategic alliances, and international business. Using primarily qualitative methods as well as mixed methods, he is particularly interested in how entrepreneurs start up and develop their businesses, and also how firms establish partnerships internationally. His work has been published in Journal of Business Research, International Small Business Journal, using primarily qualitative methods as well as mixed methods. He is particularly interested in how entrepreneurs start up and develop their businesses, and also how firms establish partnerships internationally. His work has been published in the Journal of Business Research, International Small Business Journal, Journal of Small Business Management, Journal of Services Marketing, the Service Industries Journal, and also of Tourism Research and Tourism Management. Excuse me. Altinay was a member of the Business and Economics panel in Research Assessment Exercise 2014 in Hong Kong. He sits on the editorial boards of more than 12 journals, including Journal of Business Research and Journal of Services Marketing. He is also the Associate Editor Europe for Journal of Service Theory and Practice and International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management. Altinay has strong record of attracting blue-chip external funding, including funding from ESPC, Economic and Social Research Council, and the British Academy. Altinay has co-authored Strategic Management, Entrepreneurship, and Research Method textbooks. Please join me in welcome Professor Altinay to ANAHEI's Distinguished Lecture Series. Dr. Altinay.
Of the internationalization of research and research-related activities. I sit on the editorial boards of more than 12 different journals, and I also manage research projects to successful completion, both at national and international levels. And in terms of the examples I could give to you, the projects we have done and we have been doing, I have done and completed projects in China, in India, Kazakhstan, Turkey, Cyprus, Maldives, and different parts of the world in relation to different project areas. Now, moving on. Competitiveness. What I would like you to do is think about yourselves in relation to a society, to a country, to an organization, to a group. What we need to do is to think firstly that we all live and operate in a highly competitive environment. And we would like to make sure that we ourselves as individuals, we are competitive enough in this changing dynamic world. We also need to make sure that we contribute to the competitiveness of the group in which we are part of. We also need to make sure that we contribute to the competitiveness of the society and the country. Why is it that important? Because the world is changing and it's becoming more and more dynamic with many, many changes. Now, one thing I would like to say to you as part of today's lecture is, in the past, people used to talk about the competition between big and small fish. In today's world, the competition is between the fast and the slow fish. And what I would like you to encourage you to do is, when it comes to research, I would very much like to encourage you to think and act differently and creatively. Because as academics, in today's environment, we are not doing research only to advance the knowledge in the area of management or in the area of the focus of our research, but also we are doing research to respond to the needs of the policymakers and practitioners, but also we are doing research to be able to help our students to become the leaders of the future, who can initiate change with a clear vision. Now, if we look at the global issues, and I would like you to think really about how you can develop your research from now on in the future. Now, if you look at the existing publications published in different service industries journals, you can see that there are many studies geared towards responding to customer needs, enhancing customer experience, making sure that the customers are satisfied, as well as employee satisfaction, employee commitment, loyalty. But what we also need to think from now on is also the broader picture in which we operate, and make sure that we relate our research ideas to the global challenges of the world that it is currently facing. Well, the first one is refugee crisis. Now, refugee crisis is the reality of today's world. Just take Europe, for example. The refugee crisis from Middle East and Africa is affecting not only the economies of the countries and the political environment of the countries, but also the social cultural environment, which has got implications for different sectors of the economy. Now, when we talk about refugee crisis, we are talking about millions of people moving from, let's say, if we were to take Syria, from Syria to Turkey, Greece, Italy, Spain, Germany, all the way up to England. And these people moving from one place to another need to have food to eat, water to drink, place to stay, shelter to stay, and more importantly, they're looking for jobs to be able to start new life. They're looking for new job opportunities, business ideas to be able to start a new life. Now, if we think about the social cultural implications of this challenge that the world is facing, we have got opportunities for us as researchers to tackle it as an area. One of which I will give you only a couple of examples is, how do we make sure that we increase the social welfare or the economic welfare of the refugees moving from one destination to another? That's one area that we could tackle. The other one is, what role service industries, this could be hospitality, tourism, and other sectors of the service industry, what role could these sectors play in helping refugees to integrate to the social environment, to the environment in which they are currently living. These are two important topic areas for us to think about for the future, because it's a problem that not only countries face, but at the national level, this is an international crisis that we need to be thinking carefully about and try to make some contribution to addressing it through our research. That's one. The second one is the aging population. Now, the aging population is not only the problem of Europe. Aging population is the reality of Central Asia, Asia as well. I've been to Taiwan a couple of weeks ago. I realized that aging population is a problem in Taiwan. I'm living in England. Aging population is a problem in England. I was in Italy 2-3 days ago. Aging population is a problem in these countries. And it's a widespread problem in European Union as well. Now, when we're talking about aging population, especially in those countries where there is not enough support to the elderly feel lonely, elderly feel isolated, and staying at home, watching the TV or using social media do not always help them to become socially connected. In fact, it makes them feel worse. So what they do, or what we need to do, or what the countries need to do, is to make sure that they provide the right support mechanisms or create the environments in which elderly can become socially connected. Now, I give you another interesting example. It was on the news a month ago in Rome, in Italy. An elderly woman, the policeman heard an elderly woman crying loud in her flat. They broke into to find out why she was crying so that they could help the elderly woman. And when they broke in, they found out that the woman, elderly woman, was crying simply because she was feeling lonely. She was living on her own, and she didn't have the people around her, the social circle around her, to be able to become socially connected. So what they did, if I'm not wrong, they either baked a pizza with her, or they made pasta with her, so that they could spend some time together with her to be able to cheer her up and make her feel that actually she's not alone. She has got people around her. Now, I work every day from home to work, and I see many elderly people around trying to look for places, coffee shops, restaurants, and other social environments, social circles, so that they can be part of that social circle and become socially connected. So we have got aging population. It's a reality. So what are the possible topics for us to tackle? One of which is what role retail store, for example, supermarkets, shopping malls, or coffee shops, restaurants could play in creating the social environment, the social space for this elderly group to become socially connected, so that we can tackle the problem of social isolation of elderly. Now, this is an important global issue, and we need to be part of it if we really want to be on top of the game when it comes to doing research. I'm moving on. Informal economy. The gentleman you see on the right is not my hairdresser, my barber. He is the man doing the work, doing the job off the record, undeclared, not recorded by the economy. Now, informal economy is not only the problem of the developing countries, it is also the problem of developed countries. And I've been to Spain a couple of weeks ago, and when I talked to colleagues about the current economic problems in Spain, I found out that informal economy, not recorded, not tax economy, is the main problem of the country. Now, when we're talking about informal economy, it has got implications for different sectors of the service industries. They have got implications for the employment, it has got implications for the customer groups, and it has got implications for the business owners as well as policymakers who are trying to make long-term plans. So that's an area for us to also consider for the future. And the one on the right, the Silk Road, is what I would see is the future of the world. So starting from China all the way down to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, down to Turkey, we are talking about the trade route, old trade route, which is now being transformed, regenerated by those leading countries who sit around or within the Silk Road. Now, Silk Road is the old trade route that countries used to trade with each other in the past, use this road to trade with each other. Now, what China as a country has done recently with the initiative policy called One Belt, One Road, is trying to take the lead to retransform, to regenerate the Silk Road so that these countries can trade among themselves in the future in a more cooperative way. Now, if we're thinking about those country markets along the Silk Road, so let's make sure that I don't miss out those countries, because people talk about old Silk Road as well as new Silk Road. So we're talking about China, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, India, all the way down to Turkey are affected by the Silk Road. So if you think about that region and the potential around these countries, we should surely be considering about looking slightly to the east from now on and trying to understand what sort of political, economic, social, cultural changes are happening in this part of the world to be able to become more proactive and innovative in the way we develop new project and research ideas. I'm moving on. Now, climate change. You might have heard already that there is a lot going on in terms of the discussion and how we can at least diminish or reduce the negative impacts of the climate change, which have dramatic impacts or likely impacts in the future. When we talk about climate change, I worry a lot. I worry a lot because we're talking about not being able to do some of the agriculture that we do in some parts of the world. We are talking about natural disasters. We are talking about not being able to feed the growing population of the world. Now, if we think about all these, we need to as researchers, think how we can help different countries, societies, groups to develop resilience towards climate change. That's an important area for us to think collectively. And that's something for you, I would like to leave there for you to think and ponder for a while. Now, European Union. European Union, there's an ongoing debate around European Union for some time now, even before the Brexit. Now, European Union has got an excellent trade potential, especially with the free movement of the people, free movement of the goods. The trade between these countries has been tremendous, offering excellent opportunities for the different sectors of the service industries. This could be financial services, hospitality, tourism, professional services, retailing. But where is European Union leading to? Where is it heading to in terms of its economic integration as well as political integration? And there are two critical questions for us to really think in relation to the future of European Union. Is European Union going to achieve a truly a real political integration, to be able to reach to full economic integration? If this political integration is not going to be achieved among member countries, what does that mean for the economic integration? And I would like to leave that question with you for the time being, because depending on what direction European Union leads to, we will have to develop our research funding strategies. We will have to develop our research project ideas, not only in relation to the European Union, but maybe in relation to the European Union's relationship with Russia, with America, with China, and with Central Asia. So I'm leaving that idea with you there again. I'm just highlighting this to you as a thought. Now, changing economic and social patterns cover a wide range of topics, one of which is that is related to consumer buying behaviors or consumer purchase behaviors. Nowadays, I'm sure you would agree with me that people have less time to travel, less time for shopping, and little money to spend on different activities. People are more cautious than ever in terms of making, for example, travel plans, doing shopping online or from elsewhere. But at the same time, they are extremely risk averse. They think a lot when it comes to doing shopping. And they will have to monitor different options before they commit themselves to any buying decisions. That's one. The other one is children. Children have always been and increasingly becoming playing the central role when it comes to decision making for certain purchase decisions. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we monitor all these economic and social patterns when it comes to doing research in different service industry sectors. And finally, when it comes to global issues, is social media. Now, if we talk about social media is great. And in fact, it has been extremely efficient and helpful when it came to providing or offering opportunities to organizations, companies to develop different relationships with customers, enhance customer experience, encourage them, and help them to make more informed purchase decisions. That's all great. But one thing we all researchers need to consider is also the negative implications of the social media, and especially the risks that social media could possess or could introduce to our world. That is, on social media, consumer groups might be running a negative publicity campaign about your organization, about your institution, which is something you might not be aware of. Now, we all talk about the positive impacts of social media on institutions, on organizations, on individuals. What we as researchers need to do from now on as well is to think about the destructive potential of social media for the individuals as well as for organizations as well. So I would like to draw your attention to that one as a topic. One thing I wanted to mention, but I didn't want to sound too negative about what goes on around the world, but that's an important topic to mention, I believe as well, which I have not put down there for you. That is terrorism and terrorist attacks. It's very unfortunate that we have been hearing these incidents all around the world, everywhere. And that's something we will need to think about when it comes to doing research in relation to crisis management and risk management, to be able to prepare destinations, organizations, and individuals, and be proactive about what can be done in relation to managing the possible risks and impacts of terrorist attacks globally. Now, if we think about all these global trends, I would argue today that we as researchers, you could be a researcher doing entrepreneurship related research, you could be a researcher doing research in the area of strategic management, marketing, hospitality, tourism. I would argue that if we think about these global challenges of the world, we cannot do research without doing interdisciplinary social science informed research to be able to tackle these global issues. We need to make sure that our research is social science informed. So if we think about the elderly population and the social isolation of elderly, that area needs to be tackled not only by healthcare, sociology, psychology researchers, but also with some input from the hospitality and other service industry related researchers as well. Now, if we think about refugee crisis cannot be addressed only by sociologists or psychologists. We need economists as well as people doing research in other areas of the business management domain as well. So what we need to do is we need to start collaborating, initiating dialogue with different with people who are doing research in different disciplines. Yeah. Now, we did mention social sciences. What about this hard sciences of research? Yes, that is important as well. There will be time that we will have to, and now even now, have to collaborate with people such as architects, engineers, when we are tackling climate change or disaster-related studies. We will have to collaborate with them and start initiating dialogue now. So when it comes to doing innovative research, yes, doing interdisciplinary social science informed research would strengthen your contribution to knowledge and will help you to develop the conceptual ideas, perspectives, the mindset to tackle those global issues. But also, when it comes to doing innovative research, we will have to make sure that our research has potential to make economic, social, and/or environmental impact as well. The key question here is how do practitioners and policymakers benefit from our research, and how do we make sure that we use these skills, the mindsets, in such a way that we not only advance the theory, in other words, communicate only with academics, but also make our research more meaningful and practical that would address the needs of the practitioners and policymakers as well. And finally, on this slide is the international scope. When I look around the studies some people do and the ideas being introduced to the academic domain, sometimes even from the conferences I attend, I realized that sometimes researchers think too much within their own country domain without thinking enough about the international scope of their studies. So what I encourage you to do, all researchers to do, is actually to think beyond national borders, to make that our research has got some international scope. Now, changing landscape, there are a number of challenges that we all face as academics and in higher education or higher education institutions. Now, the first one is the withdrawal or the reduction of state funding in higher education. This is an interesting one. Why is it interesting? Because we as institutions here in the UK are being affected by the withdrawal or at least the reduction of state funding in higher education. That means we'll have to think creatively about the alternative sources for funding for our research to start with. And also I've been hearing and this a lot recently from the European researchers in the European Union, saying that the European Union is planning to reduce the funding for social science driven studies. In other words, they would be more supportive of science-related studies when it comes to funding research, but maybe less supported when it comes to supporting research ideas in the area of social sciences. Now, that's interesting. That's European Union and the UK. But on the other hand, we all know that the governments in emerging economies, including in China, the government is increasing funding for research in particular. And let me tell you one interesting thing. The funding, there is a lot of funding going to the research activities in China to the extent that there was an estimate in 50 years' time, 50% of the publications will come from scholars from China. So that shows the extent and the contradiction here. On one hand, we have got the withdrawal, reduction of funding in one part of the world. On the other hand, an increase of funding in higher education. And that has got to do with the changing economic and political landscape globally. Now, that takes me to the third point, which is about the research quality indicators. As it stands, there's no agreement, even in the UK or within European Union, let alone in the world, about what constitutes quality. What are the best journals and what would constitute a high quality journal or high quality research indicators. So if we were to think about this changing landscape, Europe, UK, reduction of funding, they have their own quality lists. Then we have got emerging economies, they are increasing research funding and more people are becoming research active and they are producing high quality research outputs. They have their own quality indicators as well. So what we are thinking 10, 15 years down the line, or even now, what we talking about here is extremely diverse research quality indicators. So the key question is, given these changes, changing landscape, what will make high research quality, or what will be the indicators of research quality? Now, fourth point, aging academia with PhDs. That's the reality of certainly the UK and to a certain extent in European Union as well. The question is, how do we address that problem in the UK or within European Union? Now, given these challenges, what I would like to do is introduce yourselves a number of opportunities. Now, if there is less funding being allocated in the UK and European Union, and then there is increase in terms of research funding in emerging economies, certainly we will need to think about internationalizing our own research activities by collaborating with academics in those emerging economies. The other one is the growing recognition of the value and relevance of research in the corporate world. Now, if the funding is coming from the state is becoming less and it's not as generous as it used to be, what we need to do is develop collaborations with the corporate world so that we can seek for funding, support for funding from the corporate world. So, but how is it possible? How much time and resources do we need to invest in to be able to develop that relationship? And increasing awareness and importance of research and knowledge and exchange in emerging economies certainly is an opportunity for us to capitalize on. Now, research for innovation, I've got a number of recommendations for you here. Increase the number of international research collaborations and knowledge exchange, especially with the academics in emerging economies. Think about the impact on practice. In other words, how can we offer value and relevance to the practitioners and policy makers? But on the other hand, think about your staffing mix and profile. We cannot be Superman as academics. We cannot constantly try to strive to achieve excellence in different streams, i.e. academic publications, making our research more impactful and meaningful, securing research funding. Therefore, what we need to do as institutions is to think about the staffing mix and the profile that we create for that institution, for that department. So one person might be very good at conceptualizing ideas, developing research instruments, collecting data, analyzing, writing up, but then you might need to associate or put this person together with someone else who might have the consultancy skills, ability to sell ideas so that you can respond directly to the practitioners and policymakers' needs. So think about the staffing mix and the profile you have in your institution. And research training in international context is extremely important. And here, this is a message especially for the PhD students, graduate students. Now, you might be studying your PhDs in States, in England, or in different parts of Europe, or in China. My advice to you is that make sure that you attend not only national conferences, but also international conferences. Make sure that you expand your network to international platforms. Make sure that you take every single opportunity like this one, these web seminars, so that you can start learning internationally from the others. So I would like to congratulate the institution and Professor Çobanoğlu once again for creating such an excellent platform for that. Now, Service Industries Journal, I'm moving on swiftly. It's an SSCI index journal established in 1981 and first academic peer-reviewed journal in the world devoted to the services sector and services management. We publish papers that will help us to advance theory in the areas of management, entrepreneurship, innovation, and financial management. But we would very much like to, or we would be very interested in attracting papers from researchers whose studies are informed by social sciences such as psychology, sociology, economics, law, and politics. And contributions are welcome from around the globe, addressing contemporary topics that I mentioned and covered earlier on: social, economic, political, and environmental issues. Since I have become the editor of the journal, and this was January 2017, only 6 months ago, I made three strategic appointments. Professor Joseph Sergi, Muzo Isal, and Gary Akers as strategy editors, 2 regional editors for each region, America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Australia. And these regional editors are responsible for not coordinating the review of the papers process. They are responsible for proactively identifying good quality, innovative, methodologically robust papers and inviting them to submit to the journal. Now, some of you might have already picked up on this, and it was in fact the case in a couple of other platforms as well. Why is Africa not there, and not two regional editors have not been appointed yet? The answer is, I have not forgotten about Africa. It's an important region, important area. It's just I'm trying to develop my network and connections so that I can make the best appointments possible. I made 3 methodology editor appointments to help us with the initial manuscript screening. 1 Chinese language editor has been appointed to offer support and assistance with the translation of the abstracts of accepted papers in Mandarin Chinese. Now here, the initiative we have taken for the journal, from now on, the abstracts of the accepted papers will not only be published in English, but also in Chinese language, so that we can reach out to that audience as well and communicate with them as much as possible. I am also expanding the editorial board to reflect the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary perspectives. So if you feel that you have got something to offer to the journal in terms of reviewing papers and supporting the new direction and initiatives, please get in touch. We have got a number of special issues which are in line with the earlier trends or the global issues I mentioned to you, that is service industries and informal economy. So please check the journal's website for that. Refugee crisis and human exploitation, innovations and behavioral change, political environment, security and the service industries. The smart services is another important area, and we have got a special issue for that, and the Silk Road and the service industries. As far as I know, I see as an editor, as an academic, even before an editor, as an individual without these hats on, I see Silk Road as the future. And I would very much like to encourage all of you to think about the developments around the Silk Road. And if you find an opportunity to develop a project idea in collaboration with the researchers from that part of the world, make sure that you consider that a special issue. And we have also initiated an idea for the PhD students, graduate students. We are now accepting papers from the PhD graduate students who have whose PhD projects are nearing to completions or who are within the 3 years completion. So we encourage these students to submit papers around 5,000 words, and we welcome conceptual and methodological papers being submitted to this stream. Cutting edge PhD student papers section or stream doesn't have a deadline, whereas the previous special issues, they do have a deadline. So please check the journal's website. And finally, I would like to bring a conference to your attention, which will be held next year in Almaty, Kazakhstan, 2018 April. Oxford Brookes University, in collaboration with Hong Kong Poly, Kim Yap, and another institution from Turkey and Iran and Korea, we are jointly hosting, co-hosting a conference in Almaty, and I look forward to seeing you there with your papers related to the Silk Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Altinay, for an excellent trends lecture on current trends and future trends on services management. I do appreciate it. So at this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. I already received some questions from audience members, and we are also live on Facebook at the same time, as well as, of course, the Zoom technology that we are using. I would like to read some of the questions. One question from Professor Okumush. Excellent points, Dr. Altinay, he says, and what new skills should service researchers have?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good research question. A very good question. What I would like to say here is that in today's environment, academic environment, higher education, we cannot afford just to have academic skills as academics. What we need to have is we need to develop consultancy skills, skills of acting like car salesmen in some places to be able to convince the practitioners and policymakers to buy in our ideas. Skills of presentation and dissemination, because when we're talking about impact or making your research impactful, you need to be able to disseminate these findings of your projects by using different platforms effectively. So the first step is dissemination. The second step is making sure that your audience, practitioners and policymakers buy in these ideas. So you definitely need selling and consultancy skills to be able to convince the practitioners about the practical value of the research you have been doing.
Thank you, Dr. Altinay. Another question, can you please shed some light on the possibilities of experimental research in services management?
Well, as a journal, we will welcome experimental research from researchers. And what I would encourage people to do is to think about the application of experimental research in different platforms. And you can use this in different research scenarios, which we can think of in relation to consumer behavior research. So would you like me to be more specific in terms of the areas that the people can apply experimental research? Is that the question?
Faizan Ali asked this question, so I'm looking at Facebook where he is watching this webinar for his feedback. Let's see.
People can apply experimental research.
Give me 1 second, please. Faizan Ali asked this. There is a short delay between this particular live and the Facebook. We just go there.
1 second, please.
Yes, please. He's asking some specific, more specifics about this. If you could please. Some specific, more specifics about this. Professor Altinay, Faizan Ali has asked for a little bit more specifics, if you could please, about the experimental research in services management.
Oh yes, I mean experimental research can be applied to any area in the area of consumer behavior. One of which is how consumers could respond to background music that gyms, hotels, restaurants are playing. So that could be tested and understood through experimental research. We could do experimental research to some of the smell and the flavor they use in different platforms, in different supermarkets, hotels, restaurants, and try to understand how consumers would react to that. So we can expand that. There are different options for us to be able to look at in relation to consumer behavior as well as employee behavior. And that's an area we could all discuss collectively and open up for discussion as well. I can think of many examples which I could list down here, but I'm well aware of and also the cautious of the time limit we have got.
Thank you, Dr. Altinay. I just want to give one example from our research here at the M3 Center at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee. We just conducted a study where, experimental study where we have placed the menu items in a different locations, in a desirable location versus non-desirable location, with calorie information and non-calorie information. And we asked people to select their lunch options and wanted to see if the location of the healthy options in a menu along with the calorie information had any impact. And the results are quite interesting. And we will present the results in Eurocre conference in Kenya this October. But that's also one example that hopefully we will be able to submit to your journal later. One more question.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, that made me that helped me to think about the idea in relation to experimental research. The other thing we could do is, and we could apply experimental research to, is the packaging and the design of the packaging, and then how consumers would react to whether they would be encouraged or to purchase more or less depending on the packaging used for different goods. Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. One more question here. Let me read that to you. Thank you very much for Professor Altinay. How do you direct your students in discovering the originality character in their research studies?
The originality of this study, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting question. When it comes to originality and innovativeness of this study, I would very much like to encourage the students to think about originality or innovativeness across 3 dimensions. One of which is the conceptual or the theoretical originality. The second one is the contextual originality, and the third one is the methodological originality. Now, many papers we received to the journal, and also for the different journals I've been reviewing, the students or even the academics tend to place too much emphasis on what I would say contextual originality. So there are studies done on tourism planning and development in or the influence of politics on tourism planning and development in UK, States, France, China, and my study is also doing that research in Cyprus. So that student is seeking to justify originality in relation to the context. That's not enough anymore. What the students need to do is think about the theoretical and the conceptual originality of the study. And my advice to the students, we can expand this discussion further. My advice to the students is, when you think about the originality of this study, the best way of justifying or strengthening the originality of your study is to make your research more social science informed. So if you are doing entrepreneurship related research, you can look at entrepreneurship from the ethnicity dimension, from the religion dimension. If you are doing a consumer related study, you can look at consumer behavior through culture, ethnicity, and religion again. So make sure that whatever you do, you bring in the social dimension, social science dimension into the picture.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Altinay. This wraps up our time also allotted for this one. But before we go, I would like to just share a quick information with our presenters here. I would like to thank Dr. Altinay for taking the time being with us and explain to us the current and future trends in the services management. And I would like to invite all of you to join the Global Conference on Services Management, which is a dedicated conference on services management in October 3rd to 7th in 2017 in Volterra, Italy. I also would like to thank University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee, College of Hospitality and Tourism Leadership, and the M3 Center for Hospital Technology Innovation for their support for ANAHEI, and also again this lecture and also the previous lectures that we had, distinguished lecture series, recorded videos are available at anahei.org/lecture, as I have said before, without any fee. And finally, before we say goodbye to all of you, we would like to remind one more time the Global Conference on Services Management. The website is gloserve.org, and that is going to take place on October 3 to 7, 2017, Volterra, Tuscany, in Italy. Dr. Altinay, I appreciate one more time your time and your efforts and support for ANAHEI and also the Global Conference on Services Management. And without further ado, I would like to wish all of our attendees, for the first time today, we also were live on Facebook, which was amazing. A lot of people were joined and submit questions, so which is definitely a tool that we are going to use in the future. And if we would like to invite you to our future distinguished lecture series, have a wonderful day, night, evening, depending on where you are. Dr. Altinay, would you like to have any final words?
Yes, once again, I would like to thank you and your institution for creating such a wonderful platform for knowledge transfer and scholarship. It is truly international, truly accessible. So congratulations once again. And I would like also to thank all the participants listening to this presentation seminar and also participating and by asking questions, and this is an excellent example of co-creating knowledge internationally. So congratulations all of you, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and you. Bye-bye.